So now let's talk more about records retention to contract performance. I get questions from the Corps all the time on how can I rate the contract performance at the end of the contract. A few years ago, the government implemented the Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting System, or CPARS. This is a website where the good, the bad, and the ugly can be entered as to how the contractor performed on each contract. You can see the address to the CPARS site on your screen. One of the things that I continually speak to Corps about is that if you are dissatisfied with your contractor's performance, you really shouldn't have waited until the end of the contract to voice that concern. By waiting to discuss performance issues, it is unfair to your contractor, it's unfair to the government, and it can open a whole other can of worms. Please ensure that you have your factual documentation to support your allegations, because I can guarantee you the contractor will have their own documentation as to what the government did or did not do. Furthermore, within the CPARS process, the contractor gets to rebut any comments that they don't agree with.
Hey Chris, so you've been a Corps for several RMPs, and so I'm sure that you have a lot of experience dealing informally with contractor performance. So I'm curious, if you feel a contractor is not performing to the government's satisfaction, then what kind of things do you do to remedy the situation informally, and especially doing it without going to the contracting officer?
Well, Kathy, that's a great situation that I think a lot of Corps end up in, or a lot of project managers end up in, working with contractors. And it really depends. It's kind of a gray answer, but like most things, it really does depend on the situation. If it's at least for me, if it's a contract that I've been involved with from the very beginning, and I feel like I have a pretty confident understanding of the circumstances and what's been going on and the history, I may be more willing to have kind of a direct conversation with that contractor project manager and just say, look, I think we have some performance issues. We may have some concerns that we need to take care of. And I'll make sure that I have documentation and I can look back through my notes and kind of support those statements. On the other hand, if I'm just been given a new project, and I think that's more common for a lot of us, it's pretty rare to be on a 5-year contract from start to finish for a lot of places. As a new project manager, I'd be a little hesitant to do that because I don't know the history of both sides. I don't know when, if one person's saying there's a performance issue with the contractor, is there, what does the statement of work say? Is there some personality conflict or history in there? So I'd probably, in a situation like that, make sure to document what I hear from both the BLM and from the contractor, have that informal conversation and just say, hey, what's going on, get both sides of it, but maybe a little more hesitant to kind of be a direct or say this is not doing what we need to do to the contractor project manager. Give it a little time, see what happens, and if the situation kind of resolves itself. If not, then there's some documentation and some backup to go back to the contractor with and engage the contracting officer at that point.
Yeah, I think that's good. So Cindy, what does the FAR say about evaluating contractor performance?
FAR 4215 gives directions on how to complete performance evaluations of contractors. This policy says past performance evaluations shall be prepared as specified in paragraphs B through G at the time the work under the contract or order is completed. In addition, interim evaluations shall be prepared as specified by the agencies to provide current information for source selection purposes. For contracts or orders with a period of performance including options that are exceeding 1 year, these evaluations are generally for the entity, division, or unit that performed the contract or order. The content of the evaluation should be tailored to the size, content, and the complexity of that contract, the contractual requirements. I suggest that you ask your state contracting staff or your state procurement analyst on what evaluation methods that they require or prefer. Performance evaluations through CPARS are only for direct contracts, not third-party contracts. As we discussed previously, as the BLM, we are only responsible for the content, not the contractor performance. So I won't go much further into details on CPARS process, but you're more than welcome to look at the website and work closely with your contracting staff to complete the requirement. Now, I know what you're thinking out there in the field. I have a contractor who did a bad job, so how can I let people know about their poor performance? Well, the whole purpose of these 3 broadcasts is to help you improve your process. When you involve your contracting staff early and often, then it's much easier to head off performance issues so that you don't end up in a situation where the contractor doesn't provide a high-quality product or deliverable. The reality is that often issues arise because the SOW, Statement of Work, doesn't sufficiently lay out our expectations in a detailed and clear manner. Chris, what are some other things that you have done to informally give feedback or direction to the contractor?
So much of it depends on the relationship and the rapport with that contractor. You know, it really does come down to being able to pick up the phone, have that conversation with the contracting project manager and say, you know, look, how are things going? Just a periodic check-in. On several RMP contracts, it's pretty common to spend a lot of time in the field. Maybe the contractor and I will end up in a situation where we've got a little downtime and we just can have that informal conversation and, you know, how do you feel the contract's going? What is the BLM doing, not doing for you? You know, not a big formal written list or anything like that, but just a conversation about you know, what do you see working? What would help? What would make this process go a little bit better? And I found that the more that I can engage in that and get a sense of how the project's going, the better understanding I have and the easier it is to kind of head off problems before they become problems that need to go through the contracting officer. So again, to me, it's really all about the relationships and about being able to have a conversation that doesn't have to escalate and can get situations resolved and keep the project moving forward.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate your input. So I've covered the mechanics and policy, but now let's give you a real-life example based on my experiences with environmental type contracts, specifically the admin record, the ROD, or public comments, things like that. I was involved in an RMP where the BLM interpreted the statement of work to read one way, but the draft chapter was delivered in an entirely different manner by the contractor because the contractor interpreted the statement of work totally different. In this case, like so many others, communication broke down. So I recommended the field staff ask the following questions of themselves and of the contractor. What does your statement of work say? Have you reviewed and confirmed the agreement to the quality assurance, quality control measures required to fulfill the contract for final delivery of the product? Additionally, here are some possible talking points to consider. Review the decision file, tasks and requirements. Is the file complete? Is anything missing? Discuss clarifications and questions regarding the file. Review your QA, QC actions. Has everyone done what they're supposed to do? Discuss clarifications and questions regarding critical tasks. And if necessary, develop a corrective action plan, if necessary. From these discussions, hopefully the government and the contractor will then have an agreement on all tasks, quality standards, and a schedule that will be used to ensure a quality decision file by close of contract period. If needed, a modification can be issued to ensure that participants agree to the final quality management plan and action plan. This can help both the government and contractor ensure that they're on the same page for the final tasks of the contract.
Okay, so now I'm going to briefly recap the section on contractor performance. First, Chris talked about providing some informal feedback to the contractor and, if necessary, to the contracting officer throughout the project, not just at the end. And then Cindy described a more formal method using that CPARS, or Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting System. And then Cindy suggested a process on how to move forward if the deliverables don't meet the expectations.